What if the ring on her finger didn't mean love, but survival? Abigail Walkers left Buffalo, New York, carrying a quiet secret on her left hand, a gold band that wasn't a vow, but a warning. After heartbreak, she stopped waiting for love to arrive and chose silence instead. Then she came to Seoul and met him. Hyun Jong was the kind of CEO people feared, cold, brilliant, unreachable. But the moment he saw her, something shifted. Not because she was flashy or bold, but because she spoke to janitors in Korean with a trembling accent and still tried. He saw her, but the ring said, "Don't." This is a love story that doesn't begin with romance, but with restraint, with hearts that hide behind glass and gold. It's not about fairy tales. It's about two people learning to believe in truth after years of pretending. And it all starts with a ring she never meant to wear. Now let's dive in. Seoul, Tuesday, 9:07 a.m. Hana Group headquarters. The click of heels across the marble floor was firm, steady, and unapologetically confident. Not rushed, not hesitant, just ready. Abigail Walkers adjusted the sleeve of her tailored ivory blazer as she stepped into the towering glass building that shimmered against the Seoul morning light. She looked like she belonged here. And yet, she was very aware that many wouldn't agree. A Black American woman from Buffalo, standing in one of South Korea's most elite corporate skyscrapers, hired as a global strategy consultant to help restructure Hana Group's humanitarian division. Let them blink. Let them whisper. She hadn't come for approval. She had come to build. The security guard at the reception desk straightened when she approached. "Good morning," she said, then added in carefully practiced Korean, "안녕하세요, Abigail Walkers Imnida." She bowed slightly. "Geo Noon, consultant? Yeyo, Minheyo. My Korean is still not great." The guard looked surprised, but smiled. "Anyo, it's good. Welcome." She smiled back, warm, not forced, and that was the first thing people would notice about her. Abigail's presence didn't demand attention, it earned it. Inside the executive conference room, the air was still and pressed with silence, except for the occasional click of a pen or throat clearing from mid-level managers, pretending to be unbothered by the fact that he was in the room. CEO Hyun Jong sat at the head of the long, polished table, posture immaculate, charcoal suit perfect, fingers steepled beneath his chin as his assistant murmured something low beside him. He gave no response, just the faintest nod. There were rumors, of course, that he was ruthless, cold, brilliant, impossible to please, and heartbreakingly handsome in a way that didn't feel real. But none of that mattered to Abigail as she stepped through the doors, a quiet breeze in white heels and purposeful steps. Her eyes moved to each person in the room, landing last on him. For the briefest moment, the briefest breath, something shifted. A flicker, a current, unspoken and sharp. He didn't move, not even a blink, but something in his gaze lingered, as if trying to read between the folds of her smile. Abigail returned the look, steady but not challenging, and bowed politely. "Good morning, Abigail Walkers. It's a pleasure to be here." And then, in Korean, soft and sincere, "저는 하나, 사회원, 부서를 고백하기 위한 컨설턴트입니다. 정말 감사합니다. Thank you for trusting me." There was a beat of stunned silence, not because her Korean was perfect, it absolutely wasn't, but because she tried. The junior executives gave each other side glances, but Hyun Jong simply looked at her for a long, unreadable moment. His eyes, dark like obsidian, narrowed almost imperceptibly. "She speaks better than most of you," he said, not looking away. The room chuckled nervously. She smiled, surprised, and maybe just a little amused. "정말 고맙습니다," she said again, bowing slightly. Over the next hour, Abigail moved through her strategic assessment like she'd been born for this. She outlined measurable community impact KPIs, challenged the board's vague language around equity, and proposed targeted reinvestment into neglected rural areas. But it wasn't just her competence that stood out. It was her humanity. She paused to ask the junior analyst for her opinion. She complimented the local staff's previous outreach work. She thanked the man who brought in the coffee tray in Korean, and even bowed to the janitor, who was quietly wiping a smudge from the glass door. CEO Hyunjong noticed. He always noticed. He'd seen consultants before, sharp ones, loud ones, arrogant ones, but never someone who could command a room without trying to conquer it. And never someone who looked at everyone, including him, like they weren't disposable. It rattled him. When the meeting ended, people filtered out in murmurs and quiet footsteps. Abigail lingered for a moment, gathering her notes. He hadn't said much during the presentation, just a few sharp observations, but his presence had pressed against her skin like static. Now, she felt his gaze on her back. She turned. He was standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a small notepad. "I've read your white paper on microphilanthropy," he said without preamble. His voice was calm, but there was something rougher under it. She raised a brow. "I'm surprised you had time." He looked at her. "I make time for things worth reading." Something in her pulse fluttered. She kept her expression even. "And?" His eyes flicked down to her ring, then back up. "It made me curious," he said coolly. "About?" He didn't answer. Not really. Instead, he offered the faintest bow of his head. "Welcome to Seoul, Ms. Walkers." She nodded once and turned to leave, but her fingers brushed the edge of the ring absent-mindedly. The one she had placed there, the one she told no one about. And behind her, the man she hadn't planned to meet watched the door close with a look that no one had seen on his face in years. Interest and restraint, colliding. Somewhere in the building's reflection, a ring shimmered beneath the morning sun. The restaurant was too beautiful to feel comfortable. Crystal glassware, hanging orchids, and a city view that seemed to stretch forever. Abigail sat near the center of the long mahogany table, trying not to notice how most of the executives angled themselves toward Hyunjong. Even in silence, the man commanded gravity. She had barely touched her wine. The conversation had moved from stock trends to global outreach to some joke about the American consultant's enthusiasm. She had laughed it off, as she always did. And when she laughed, really laughed, her hand lifted just slightly, light catching on her left ring finger. A single gold band, simple, elegant, unspoken. The sparkle struck like a match. Across the table, Hyunjong's gaze snapped to it, just for a second. Then again, slower this time, like he needed to be sure. His expression didn't change, not outwardly, but the warmth that had softened his usually impassive features, gone. Something invisible sealed behind his eyes. His assistant, seated discreetly to his right, noticed the subtle shift, the stiffening shoulders, the unreadable jawline. Abigail, oblivious to the cause, noticed only the sudden chill. He'd been engaged in her presentation earlier that day, asking follow-up questions, even offering one of his rare approving nods. Now he was quiet, withdrawn, mechanical. Every time she spoke, his eyes found something else to focus on. The wine glass, the skyline, the rim of his watch. She didn't know it, but he was forcing himself to forget the way she had looked in the boardroom. Alive, brilliant, unguarded. Now she was a boundary, a symbol of off-limits. And boundaries were the only thing Hyunjong knew how to respect. When the dinner ended, she stood to thank the team. He nodded, curt and distant, already sliding his phone into his pocket. "You did well today," he said, tone clipped. The words felt like glass, polished but cold. "Thank you, sir," she replied, a touch thrown off. Her tone was polite, professional, but there was a flicker of confusion in her eyes. He didn't wait for a reply. He simply bowed once and left. Later that night, her apartment was quiet, except for the faint hum of Seoul outside her window. Cars, laughter, a drizzle against glass. Abigail kicked off her heels and sighed, rolling her shoulders. Her reflection in the mirror looked tired but proud. She was halfway through unbuttoning her blazer when the faint gleam on her finger caught her eye. The ring. The same one that had turned heads earlier. The same one that had changed something she couldn't name. She lifted her hand and stared at it, twisting the smooth metal with her thumb. Her heart gave a dull ache, not for a person, but for everything that came before it. Flashback, Buffalo, New York, 2 years earlier. Snow fell in lazy spirals over Main Street as she stood inside a tiny jewelry shop, the kind with soft jazz and velvet-lined trays. The clerk smiled at her politely. "Choosing for someone special?" Abigail hesitated. "Actually, for me." He blinked, unsure how to respond. She ran her fingers along the display, stopping at a plain gold band. It wasn't extravagant, but it felt solid, grounded. "I've given so much of myself away," she murmured, almost to herself. "Maybe it's time I promised something back." The clerk smiled, misunderstanding completely. "Beautiful choice. He's lucky." She smiled faintly. "No," she said softly. "I'm just tired." When she left the store, snow melted against her lashes. The ring caught the weak sunlight like defiance. It wasn't love. It was armor. A quiet warning to the world that she was no longer open for breaking. Back to the present. Abigail sat by the window, the city lights flickering like 1,000 questions. She slid the ring off, set it on the table, and rubbed the faint mark it left on her skin. Maybe it was time to stop wearing it. Maybe. But she picked it up again, held it between her fingers, and slipped it back on. Old habits die gently when they were born of pain. Across town, in a penthouse overlooking the Han River, Hyun Jong loosened his tie, but didn't pour himself a drink. He just stood by the glass wall. The night reflected around him. He had no right to feel the strange pull in his chest, the ache that came from wanting something he had no claim to. His assistant's earlier words echoed in his mind. "Sir, she's different, but she's married?" He hadn't corrected him. Couldn't. Because what difference would it make? He'd already built a wall around his heart long ago. And tonight, a gold ring had reminded him why it was safer that way. Two people, two fortresses. Neither knew the other had stopped believing in love, long before they met. But Seoul has a way of making the guarded look up. Her, Seoul, Friday, 8:56 a.m. Hana Group, 10th floor conference prep room. The scent of coffee and printer ink filled the small prep room as Abigail moved between the staff, helping set up for a high-profile client presentation. Her ivory blouse was rolled up at the sleeves, her curls loosely pinned, eyes focused as she arranged folders and cross-checked data points on the screen. She wasn't supposed to be doing this. Consultants at her level didn't prep slides. They oversaw the ones who did. But that was Abigail. She did the work, not for praise, but because excellence had always been her quiet rebellion. She reached for a bottle of sanitizer on the counter, squeezing a little onto her palm before passing it to a junior employee. The gel shimmered under the fluorescent light. She rubbed her hands briskly, then noticed the residue seeping into the fine grooves of her ring. "Ugh, hold on," she murmured, sliding it off, setting it neatly beside her laptop. It glinted against the white desk, small, gold, harmless. But when she reached to grab it again, something in her chest hesitated. Her thumb brushed the cool surface. She slipped it back on. No one noticed. No one except him. From the hallway, Hyun Jong stood half-hidden near the glass door, pretending to check an email. His gaze wasn't on his phone. It was on her. She was laughing softly with one of the younger analysts, guiding her through a report correction, her tone kind but assertive. The kind of tone that carried warmth and confidence, not ego. Then she reached for the sanitizer, removed the ring, paused, and replaced it. Something subtle flickered across his face. Not jealousy, not exactly curiosity either. Something heavier, because that ring had become the wall between them. And for the first time, he wondered who exactly she was protecting, herself or someone else. Lunch, 12:37 p.m. The executive dining hall overlooked the river, all clean glass and steel, the skyline blurring into late morning mist. Abigail sat across from him at the long table, surrounded by half the leadership team. The clinking of utensils and polite conversation filled the space. She didn't notice how quiet he was until halfway through the meal. He wasn't avoiding her anymore. He was watching her. Calmly, intently, the way someone watches a puzzle they can't solve. When the others began to leave, their polite bows and goodbyes fading down the hall, he stayed. She was gathering her files when his voice cut gently through the silence. "Is he in Seoul?" The words hit her mid-motion. She froze, her hand hovering above her laptop. She looked up slowly. "I'm sorry?" He didn't elaborate. His expression was composed, but his eyes were searching hers, every flicker of emotion betraying how long he'd been wanting to ask. She realized what he meant. The ring. Her hand instinctively moved, covering it. "He's not around," she said lightly, forcing a smile. "Not around," he repeated, his voice low like he was testing the phrase. "Yes." A pause stretched between them. Too long for colleagues, too charged for strangers. Her smile faltered just enough for him to see the truth hiding behind it. He wanted to ask more. He wanted to know everything. But restraint was a muscle he had trained to perfection. So he simply nodded, understood, and she exhaled quietly, grateful and disappointed at once. That night, 10:03 p.m., Apgujeong District, Abigail's apartment. The night hum of Seoul drifted through the cracked window. Distant horns, laughter, the soft vibration of a city that never truly slept. Abigail sat cross-legged on the couch in her loose hoodie, hair down, laptop glowing before her. She'd been working on her report for 2 hours, but hadn't written a single line in the last 30 minutes. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, motionless. The ring gleamed faintly in the screen's reflection. She looked down at it, the small golden circle that had been her peace treaty with solitude. And yet now, it felt heavier than ever. She removed it slowly, holding it between her thumb and a forefinger. Her mind slipped backward, back to faces, voices, memories she had trained herself not to revisit. A soft click brought up her photo gallery. There he was, the last man she loved enough to believe again. He had laughed with his whole body, promised her forever, and then left without a goodbye. She stared at the photo until her throat tightened. Then, without ceremony, she hit delete. A small notification appeared. Photo permanently removed. The ring felt colder in her hand now. She set it on the coffee table beside her, the sound faint as it met the wood. For a long time, she just stared at it. It wasn't a symbol anymore. It was just metal. Meanwhile, across the city, Hyun Jong sat at his desk, the city lights spilling across the floor like liquid gold. His schedule was open in front of him, but his eyes weren't on it. He thought about her laugh in the conference room, her trembling Korean that somehow made people listen harder, her honesty in every movement, and that ring. That quiet declaration he didn't yet understand. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling. He told himself it didn't matter. She was a consultant, temporary, professional. But even as he said it, the image of her lingered. The way sunlight had glinted off that small piece of metal, and the faint look of loneliness she tried to hide behind a smile. He rubbed his temple, frustrated. Why her? He muttered under his breath. There was no answer. only the sound of the Seoul skyline breathing beyond the glass. That night, two people sat beneath the same sky, one wondering why she still wore the past, the other wondering why he cared. And somewhere between them, a golden ring caught the moonlight, waiting to lose its meaning. Seoul, Saturday morning. Yeonjong's penthouse, Hanam-dong. The morning sun spilled through the glass, catching on a row of framed photographs. All awards, corporate ceremonies, headlines. None of them showed a single smile that reached his eyes. Yeonjong sat at the kitchen counter, stirring black coffee that had long gone cold. His sister, Hee-soo, had stopped by on her usual weekend visit, filling his silent apartment with the scent of tangerines and the faint hum of a TV variety show. He hadn't spoken in several minutes. She was used to that. "Earth to my brother," she said finally, peeling a tangerine and arching a brow. "You've been staring at that wall for 10 minutes. He blinked, slowly pulling himself back. "Just thinking." "That's new," she smirked, tossing a peel into the bowl. "Thinking about work again?" He hesitated. Then, "No." Her eyes flicked to him sharply. "Oh, so it's a woman." He said nothing. Hye-soo grinned, delighted. "There is. I can always tell. Your voice goes quiet, but your face shifts, like you're trying not to care." He exhaled. "She's complicated." "They always are." He turned the cup in his hands, the sound of porcelain faint against marble. "I don't think she's in love," he said finally. "I think she's in hiding." His sister frowned softly. "From what?" He didn't answer right away. He could still see the way Abigail had looked across the lunch table. That practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes, the one she wore like armor. "From herself," he said at last. "From being hurt again." Hye-soo studied him. "And you? What are you hiding from?" He looked away. "The same thing." Later, that evening, Itaewon District. A cozy restaurant pulsed with quiet jazz and the murmur of dinner conversations. Candles flickered against wooden walls lined with books and vintage photos. Abigail sat by the window, across from her old college friend, Mia Park. Half Korean, half black, and wholly the kind of woman who could read her like a page left open. Mia sliced her steak and said casually, "So, you haven't mentioned anyone new." Abigail smiled faintly. "There's no one new. There's always someone new, even if it's the wrong one." "I'm not looking, Mia." Mia gave her a knowing look. "You're not looking? Or you're scared of what you might find?" Abigail set down her fork. "Both." Mia sighed, softening. "You can be honest with me, Abby. You don't have to keep proving that you're okay." Abigail laughed under her breath. "I'm fine." "You're not," Mia said gently. "You're tired. You've been tired for a long time." Abigail looked out at the window. The rain had started, thin lines tracing down the glass. "I gave love everything, 3 times, and each time it left less of me behind. So yeah, maybe I'm tired, but I'm not bitter." "I know you're not," Mia said, "but it's okay to stop pretending you're not lonely." That hit deeper than Abigail expected. Her throat tightened. She stared at her glass of water, the reflection of the candlelight trembling inside it. "Maybe loneliness feels safer than disappointment," she whispered. Mia reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Then I hope one day someone reminds you that you don't have to choose between the two." Hana Group headquarters. Later that night. The office was empty, save for the hum of fluorescent lights and the whisper of rain against the glass. Abigail was still there, finishing reports. Her eyes ached, but she didn't want to go home yet. The quiet felt easier than facing her thoughts. The elevator doors opened softly. She didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Only one person moved with that kind of calm authority. Like the world bent slightly when he entered a room. "Still working?" Yeonjong said quietly, approaching her desk. "I could say the same," she replied, saving her document and powering off her laptop. He glanced at the clock. It's almost midnight. Deadlines don't sleep. A hint of amusement flickered across his features. Neither do you. She looked up, and for the first time, he saw the exhaustion beneath her professionalism. Not physical, but emotional. That kind of weariness you carry in your heart. Let me take you home, he said suddenly. She blinked. That's not necessary. It wasn't a question. Their eyes met. A silent tug neither of them could resist. She hesitated, then nodded once. In the car, 12:14 a.m. The city lights blurred past as rain pattered softly on the tinted windows. The car smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. His signature scent, calm but commanding. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence wasn't awkward. It was charged. She stared out the window. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight, fingers tapping lightly against the steering wheel. Finally, she said softly, "You didn't have to drive me. Really. I know." "Then why did you?" He exhaled slowly. "Because I didn't want the day to end without seeing you again." Her breath caught. He glanced at her, his voice lower now, almost reverent. "I can't stop thinking about you, even though I know I shouldn't." The words hung between them. Quiet, sincere, dangerous. For a long moment, neither moved. The world outside blurred to gray and gold streaks, and inside the car was only the sound of rain and hearts that didn't yet know if they were allowed to ache this way. Abigail turned toward him, eyes soft, vulnerable. "Why shouldn't you?" He met her gaze, unblinking. "Because the last time I thought about someone like this, it ended badly. For both of us." Her lips parted. "Then maybe this time, don't overthink it." He smiled. Just slightly. A quiet surrender he hadn't planned to give. Easier said than done. The car stopped at a red light. The rain deepened. Their faces were just close enough for the air between them to feel electric. But neither crossed the line. When the light turned green, he spoke again, softly. "Get some rest, Abigail." She smiled faintly. "You too, Mr. CEO." And as he drove her home, both knew this night would be the one neither could forget. The night truth finally spoke louder than restraint. Outside, the rain washed over Seoul. Inside, two hearts, one guarded by fear, one haunted by memory, beat in quiet rebellion against everything they were trying not to feel. Tuesday, 8:41 p.m. Hana Group Rooftop Garden. The sky was streaked with plum and ink, the city glowing beneath it like a constellation of promises and regrets. Abigail had never seen Seoul from this angle before. High enough to feel detached from the world, but low enough to hear it still breathing below. She crossed her arms as the breeze swept through her curls, her blazer still hanging over the chair behind her. The faint scent of citrus blossoms from the rooftop trees wrapped around her like a ghost of calm she didn't actually feel. She heard the door open behind her, then close. She didn't need to turn to know it was him. His footsteps were measured, quiet. But even in silence, Hyun-jong had presence. Like gravity adjusting when he entered a space. "I figured you'd come up here," he said finally. She didn't answer, just kept staring out over the skyline, blinking harder than necessary. He stopped beside her, hands in his pockets. "I didn't mean to embarrass you earlier," he said, "at the meeting." "You didn't," she replied. "You just noticed more than most." He studied her. "I tend to notice things I care about." That landed between them like a weight. She turned to face him fully. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "This." She gestured between them, her voice trembling around the edges. "Looking at me like I'm not wearing a ring, making it harder for me to breathe in meetings, offering rides home, standing this close." He didn't flinch. "Because I don't think the ring is real." She laughed softly, bitterly. "It's real. I bought it." His jaw tightened. "You know what I mean." She looked away. Her fingers toyed with the ring unconsciously, and then she spoke, voice low, unguarded. I wore the ring to keep people away. His eyes didn't move from her face. Men, expectations, questions, she continued. Everywhere I went, someone wanted something. My attention, my time, my body, my heart. After a while, it became easier to pretend I'd already given it away. There was a long silence. Then he asked simply, "Is it working?" She looked at him, eyes tired, mouth tight. "It's keeping me alone." Her voice broke softly on that last word. Alone. Not just physically, not just romantically, spiritually alone. Like she had folded herself into a corner of the world no one could enter. Hyunjong took a slow step forward. He didn't reach for her, didn't touch her. Just let the moment hold them both in its breath. Abigail. She looked up at him, and there it was again. The connection that kept sparking between them, subtle but undeniable. Not lust, not infatuation, something deeper, like recognition, like truth. He leaned in, just enough for her to feel the nearness of him. His breath, steady, his gaze, unwavering. Their foreheads almost brushed. The rooftop air pulsed with something wild, dangerous, beautiful. Then, she stepped back, fast, sharp. Her breath came too quick now. "Please don't." He stopped immediately. His hands were still in his pockets, his posture unchanged, but everything in him had gone still. "Don't what?" he asked gently. She shook her head, voice breaking. "Don't make me fall. I just learned how to walk again." The ache in that confession was enough to silence the whole world. She turned her back to him, hugging herself as if to keep from unraveling. "I've spent the last few years convincing myself that being alone was safe, that love was something I didn't need, that I could be happy just building things, staying focused, not feeling too much." She exhaled shakily. "And then you walked in with your unreadable face and your impossible kindness and made me feel everything I buried." Behind her, he swallowed hard. "I never meant to make you fall," he said. She turned. "Then why does it feel like I'm standing at the edge of something I can't come back from?" He looked at her. Long, deep, quiet. "Because I am too." She blinked, startled. "I told myself I'd never go through it again either," he said. "But the moment you walked into that conference room in that ivory blazer, I knew I was already in trouble." The wind caught her curls as her eyes filled. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," he replied. Neither of them moved. Seconds stretched. Then she stepped toward him, slowly this time. Their hands didn't touch. Their bodies didn't lean in. But their hearts reached across the space. Not a kiss, not yet, but something just as intimate. Surrender. Up on that rooftop, beneath the weight of a city that never slowed down, two people stood with their hearts cracked wide open. Both terrified, both seen. And for the first time in a long, long while, Abigail didn't feel like she was hiding. She just felt held. Seoul, Friday evening. Hana Group Grand Foundation Gala, 7:19 p.m. The ballroom was a spectacle of glass and gold. Chandelier light fractured across polished marble, and the low murmur of Seoul's elite filled the air. Abigail stood near the far end of the hall, a vision in deep emerald satin, her curls loose, falling over her shoulders. It was her first public appearance beside the Hana Group board since joining the project. Tonight was supposed to be about the new humanitarian initiative, about impact, data, and hope. Not about her. But he kept looking. From the dais where he stood addressing donors, CEO Hyunjong's gaze kept drifting across the crowd, drawn again and again to her. He told himself it was coincidence, but every time he looked up, he found her eyes waiting. She wasn't smiling tonight. Her calm composure, the ring still glinting faintly under the ballroom lights, was the only thing keeping her from feeling too visible, too human. Later, 8:43 p.m. Dinner service had ended. Reporters lingered at the back tables, cameras poised. Abigail stood near an exhibition of children's art, quietly explaining the foundation's community projects to a small group. When she laughed, gentle, bright, a photographer turned his lens just as Hyunjong glanced toward her from across the room. Click, another, a moment frozen. The CEO's unreadable gaze, the woman with the ring, the faint electricity between them. 10 minutes later, the first headline appeared online. Hana Group CEO's secret gaze? Who is the married American consultant turning heads tonight? By the time dessert was served, the whispers had spread like perfume. She's the consultant, right? Married, I heard. Imagine that. A scandal in the middle of the fundraiser. Abigail heard it. Every word. The phrases floated to her like arrows dipped in sugar. Her stomach tightened. When she turned, she saw him across the ballroom. Their eyes met, just for a second. And in that second, she saw regret, concern, and something that looked too much like tenderness to survive in public. She moved, fast, through the crowd, through the camera flashes. Her heels clicked like a heartbeat down the corridor leading to the rooftop terrace. The cold air hit her lungs as she stepped outside, gripping the railing. The city below glimmered, alive and indifferent. She took a shaky breath, then another. She'd promised herself she'd never let the world humiliate her again, never let anyone make her feel small. But tonight, every stare felt like exposure. Behind her, the door swung open. Abigail! His voice. She turned, eyes glassy. Don't. Not tonight. Let me explain, he said. To who? She snapped. The media? Your board? Or to me? Because even you seem to forget what that ring means. He stepped closer. I haven't forgotten. But the world saw something real, because it is real. Her breath hitched. No. It's just proximity. You care about the work, not me. He almost smiled, pained. If that were true, I wouldn't be here chasing you in a tuxedo while an entire boardroom looks for me. Something broke in her chest at that, because the truth was, she wanted to believe him. But the noise, the lights, the eyes, everything felt too heavy. She shook her head. I can't do this, not now. And before he could answer, she walked past him, down the stairs, into the hall, out of sight. Hours later, the gala had ended. The staff had gone home. Only the scent of champagne and wilted roses remained. When Hyunjong returned to the rooftop terrace, the air was quiet, colder. He closed his eyes. The wind moved through the rooftop garden, scattering the petals from the floral displays, carrying them across the floor like fading applause. He stood there for a long time, long after the lights of the ballroom went dark. Somewhere in the city below, she was probably staring at the same skyline, telling herself she'd done the right thing. But for the first time since meeting her, he didn't believe logic could save either of them. In a city built on appearances, one woman finally stopped pretending, and one man finally couldn't. The armor had cracked, and through it, the truth had finally begun to breathe. 4 days after the gala, her office chair remained empty. Her nameplate still rested on her desk, but the woman, gone. No email, no calls, only absence and silence. Abigail's apartment, late afternoon. She lay curled on her couch, still in yesterday's sweatshirt, the ring box unopened on the coffee table. The velvet looked darker today, heavier. She hadn't cried, but her chest felt full of something she couldn't name, like sorrow mixed with regret and just enough tenderness to make it hurt worse. Her phone buzzed once, then again. She ignored both. On the third buzz, she turned the screen face down and tossed it under a pillow. Outside her window, Seoul moved on, fast, unapologetic. She curled tighter. Flashback. Years ago. Buffalo. She was 26 and wide-eyed, waiting at a candlelit restaurant with a small bouquet on the table. The man she'd been with for 2 years finally said he wanted to talk. He did. "I met someone else," he said. "It just happened." No apology, no remorse, just ending. She left the restaurant with her hands shaking and her mascara smudged. The bouquet stayed behind on the table. Flashback. 1 year later. The next one came with a whirlwind romance. Texted her every morning. Called her my miracle. Until one day, nothing. No explanation. No closure. He disappeared like a bad dream. Ghosted after 6 months. Not a word since. Flashback. 3 years ago. The last one had come dressed in ambition and charm. He loved her until she spoke too boldly. Until she had ideas and meetings. Until she didn't shrink when he told her she should be more soft, more agreeable, more American girlfriend material. He'd ended things with a single line. "You're not hard to love, Abigail. You're just hard to manage." She had smiled through the breakup, then bought the ring 2 weeks later. Not as a vow to anyone. As a wall. Present day, Abigail stared at the ceiling now, tears slipping sideways into her hair. Not because she missed the past, but because for the first time, she didn't want the armor anymore. And she was terrified that it was already too late. Across town, Hyun Jong's apartment. He sat at his desk, fountain pen poised over paper, as rain traced slow lines down the window. He hadn't called her, not once. Not because he didn't want to, but because love, real love, didn't chase to be heard. It waited to be invited back in. He pressed the nib to the page and began to write. "Abigail, I wanted to say something on the rooftop that night, but I didn't. I could tell you were already carrying too much, so I'm writing it now, not to ask for anything, not to fix what shattered, but just to tell the truth. The day I saw you, I thought, she doesn't belong here. And I was right. You didn't belong in a room of hollow men clapping for numbers they didn't believe in. You belonged in light, in laughter, in grace. I've watched you build bridges in places where people only saw walls. I've watched you care about people no one else noticed. And somewhere in the quiet, I stopped guarding my heart. I don't know what you need right now, but if you ever want to try again, without the armor, I'll be waiting. Not to chase you. Just to stand still long enough for you to feel safe again. H.J." He folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, but never sealed it. Instead, he set it in the drawer of his nightstand, closed it softly, and leaned back in his chair. Later. That night, Mia Park's apartment. Abigail's friend opened the door wearing sweats and holding 2 mugs of tea. She didn't ask questions, just hugged her once, tight. Abigail's voice cracked against her shoulder. "I feel like I broke something I'll never get back." Mia pulled back, searching her eyes. "You didn't break it. You just didn't know how to carry it yet." They sat by the window, steam curling from their mugs. Then Mia said, "He stopped by." Abigail looked up sharply. "What?" "Yesterday. He didn't ask where you were. Didn't try to reach you. Just stood in the hallway." "What did he say?" Mia sipped her tea, then repeated it quietly. "If she ever wants to try again, without armor, I'll be waiting." Abigail lay in bed later, the skyline glowing faintly through the curtain. Her hand reached toward the ring box, then past it. Instead, she opened her notebook, clicked her pen, and began to write. Not a report, not a letter. A prayer, soft, shaky, but finally, open. Sometimes, the man you didn't expect becomes the one you finally believe, but only after you stop hiding from the love you always deserved. Seoul, 3 weeks later, Hana Group headquarters, Monday morning. The lobby doors slid open and the room stilled. Conversations paused. Heads lifted. The rhythm of the morning. Coffee runs, elevator dings, keyboard clicks, faltered for half a second, because she had returned. Abigail Walker stepped through the threshold in a slate blue pantsuit, her curls coiled neatly at her shoulders, a leather folder tucked beneath one arm. She looked poised, strong, like the woman they remembered, but quieter somehow, lighter. She walked with the same grace she always had, but today, something was different. And it wasn't just her. It was her hand, her left hand, bare, no ring, no wall, no lie. The whispers began the second she passed the second floor mezzanine. She's back. Is she not married? Wait, where's her... Was it ever real? Abigail didn't flinch. She didn't smile either. She walked with purpose down the long hallway that led to the executive boardroom. Her heels struck the tile like the sound of a decision made. This time, there would be no apologies for who she was. This time, she came as herself, not someone hidden behind gold and silence. Inside the boardroom, CEO Hyunjong stood at the window, hands folded neatly behind his back. His reflection shimmered in the glass as the city stretched out behind him. Calm, distant, the way he had learned to be. He heard the door open. He turned and stopped breathing. Abigail stood in the doorway, folder still tucked under her arm, her eyes steady. His gaze dropped instinctively to her hand. No ring, nothing but skin and truth. Their eyes locked. He didn't move at first, just let the realization wash over him. Then he stepped forward, not quickly, just intentionally. Each step toward her was a confession. When he stood only inches away, his voice came quiet and low, unshaken. You took it off. She didn't look away. It was never real. Her breath trembled. But this is... Something passed between them then. Not desire, not adrenaline. Something more sacred. The fragile, holy moment when a wound stops bleeding because it's finally been seen. She had spoken the words she once feared, and he had waited for them, without demand, without pressure, because love, real love, does not push, it waits. He didn't kiss her. Instead, he reached out his hand, palm up, fingers open, not possessive, not persuasive, just steady. A gesture so simple, it nearly broke her. She looked at it, this quiet offering, and knew exactly what it meant. Not I own you, not you owe me, but I'm still here, if you want me to be. Her hand lifted, her fingers slid into his, and she exhaled for the first time in weeks. The whole room faded. No board members, no rumors, no past, no ring. Just the warmth of his hand, solid, grounding, real. Outside the boardroom, his assistant blinked in quiet shock as she passed by and caught a glimpse of their joined hands through the glass. The rest of the staff didn't need confirmation. They already knew. She wasn't hiding anymore, and he had never left. Later that day, they stood beside each other at the rooftop again, this time in silence. Not the strained kind, the kind that knew. The sun warmed their hands, still clasped between them. I wasn't sure you'd come back, he said softly. I wasn't sure you'd still be waiting. I told your friend, he said, if you ever wanted to try again without armor. She smiled barely. I came without it. He nodded once, then he whispered, and I'll carry what's left if you ever get tired. Her eyes shimmered, and she turned her face toward the sky. I'm not tired today, she said. He smiled. They didn't need a kiss to seal it, because in that moment, hand in hand, honesty between them like gold, they had finally arrived at the truth. This wasn't a story of falling. This was a story of choosing. She once wore a ring to protect herself from love. Now she wore nothing at all, and somehow felt safer than ever. Not because love wasn't risky, But because this time it didn't demand a mask, it waited for the truth and welcomed her as she was. 1 year later, Seoul, spring morning, Mapo District, Women's Hope Center. The audience hushed the moment Abigail Walker stepped up to the podium. Sunlight poured in through the glass-paneled walls of the community auditorium, painting golden stripes across the floor. Rows of women, some survivors, some dreamers, all rebuilding, sat shoulder to shoulder, eyes turned toward the woman in the soft linen dress and warm earth-toned heels. Abigail's voice rang out over the mic, gentle but confident. "Good morning, everyone. Annyeonghaseyo." She bowed, the room following in kind. A small ripple of laughter broke out as she added, "Mienhayo. My Korean still sounds like a tourist, but I promise my heart is fluent." They laughed again, with her, not at her. She smiled, continuing in a mix of practiced Korean and English, her cadence slow, her tone full of soul. "This isn't just a launch, it's a seed, and every woman here, no matter how you arrived, no matter what you left behind, deserves soil deep enough to grow in." A few women blinked back tears. Abigail continued, "I know what it's like to start again, to wear strength like a shield, to pretend a ring on your finger means peace, when really it's silence. But what I've learned, what this place is built on, is this simple truth. Healing doesn't happen behind walls. It happens in community. And grace doesn't wait for perfection. It just asks for honesty." A standing ovation began before she even finished. As she bowed again, her hand brushed the ring now resting on her right hand, a simple silver band engraved with her NGO's name, Root and Grace, and beneath it, in Hangul, the word Yunhai, grace. In the back row, Hyun Jong stood with his hands folded in front of him, suit slightly unbuttoned, tie loose. No longer the polished CEO who once led rooms with silence. Now, he watched the woman he once thought untouchable stand on that stage, owning the very city she once feared would swallow her. He wasn't her boss anymore. He was something far rarer, her future. Later that evening, Han River, 9:17 p.m. The city shimmered like a dream behind them, but they weren't watching it. They stood at the river's edge, beneath a canopy of soft wind and lamplight, the water catching the moonlight in 1,000 trembling reflections. Abigail leaned against the railing, her hair loose in soft waves, her hands tucked in the pockets of her trench coat. Hyunjong stood beside her, close enough to share warmth, not close enough to steal it. She spoke first. "I still don't believe in fairy tales," she said quietly. He didn't laugh, didn't flinch. "Good," he said. "This isn't one." She turned to look at him. "This is real," he said. "It's built, not wished for." She nodded slowly, then reached for his hand. No hesitation, no mask. They stood like that for a long time, fingers intertwined, silence blooming peacefully between them. No cameras, no speeches, no walls, just breath, and love, and grace. She once wore a ring to keep love away. Now, she wore one to remind herself what love built. Out of rubble, out of risk, out of truth. And beside the river, where fairy tales ended, she walked away, hand in hand with the man who never tried to rescue her, only waited until she rescued herself. 6 months later, Root and Grace Center, Community Garden Dedication Day. It wasn't a wedding. There were no white gowns, no photographers, no dramatic music swelling in the background, but it was just as sacred. Rows of women lined the edge of the freshly tilled garden at the back of the new Root and Grace campus. There were children chasing butterflies, volunteers passing out lemonade, and dozens of clay pots hand-painted with affirmations in both Korean and English. And standing in the middle, hands in the dirt, hair in a loose ponytail, cheeks sun-warmed, was Abigail. She wasn't the guest of honor. She was the gardener, and she loved it that way. Hyun-jong sat on a bench nearby, watching her with the kind of pride that never needed to be spoken. He traded stock charts for soil these days. Still involved with Hana Group, yes, but quieter now. More present. He wore a light blue linen shirt, sleeves rolled, no tie in sight. He looked younger, or maybe just free. Next to him sat a teenage girl, one of the residents of Root and Grace's transitional housing program. She clutched a folded piece of paper in her lap. "She helped me write my first college application," the girl whispered, eyes fixed on Abigail. "I know," Hyun-jong replied softly. "She told me. She said, people like us don't have to disappear to be safe." His voice caught for a second. "She's right." The girl looked over at him. "Are you married to her?" He smiled, glancing down at his hand, still ringless. "Not yet," he said. "But I think we're building something better than a wedding." She nodded like she understood. Later, that evening, garden path. The sun was dipping behind the buildings, casting everything in honey gold. Abigail wiped her hands on a towel and walked the stone path between the flower beds, barefoot. She found him leaning against a wooden arbor, watching her like he always did. Quiet, full of reverence. She stopped in front of him, raising an eyebrow. "You've been staring." He shrugged. "You make it hard not to." She smirked and bumped his shoulder lightly with hers. He reached into his pocket and pulled something small and wrapped in velvet. Not a ring box. It was something different. Curious, she took it and opened it slowly. Inside was a key and a folded note. She unfolded the note. "To our new home. It has a garden, a big one, and a room just for writing, and enough space for more Grace. Maybe even a baby someday. No pressure. Love, Hyun-jong. Your almost husband and forever witness." Her eyes filled. He reached for her hand and kissed the center of her palm. "I'm not proposing yet," he said softly. "I just wanted to build something ready for you, in case, one day, you say yes." She looked up at him, tearful and laughing at the same time. "I already did." He blinked. She pointed to her chest. "The day I stopped wearing armor." He kissed her forehead, held her against his chest, and they stood there as the sun set over the place they had built. Not out of fantasy, but from the soil of everything they'd survived. There were no fairy tales, only faith. No fireworks, just gardens. No glass slippers, just bare feet on sacred ground, and a love story that was never about finding the perfect ending, only building a true one. The end. She once wore a ring to protect herself from the world. Now she wears one engraved with the word grace. Not because she was saved by love, but because she finally believed she deserved it. And the man who once stood across boardrooms in silence now stands beside her, not as a CEO, but as a witness to the woman who stopped hiding. This wasn't a story about being rescued. It was a story about becoming ready to be loved, fully, freely, and without fear. Because in the end, he didn't ask her to take the ring off. He waited until she was ready to let it go. And that made all the difference. Until next time, keep spreading kindness boldly, because real love, truth, and grace always find their way. And remember, the most powerful stories aren't just told, they're lived.